Welcome to the BIPOC Perspectives session. Thank you all for being here. I know there's still people coming in, but it's all right. We're just trying to stay on track here. So, thank you for coming. It means a lot that you're here. And we have this CNPS BIPOC group that I'll talk about later in my presentation. But we put it out there. We wanted to get a session together, and I'm proud that we're here today and we have the session going. And I'm going to introduce our first speaker. You might have seen already this morning in the other talk, Brenda Kyle. Brenda is a certified California naturalist and certified interpretive guide. Her focus is educating the public about plants, wildlife, and microclimates along the wildland-urban interface. She gives presentations in English, Spanish, and will often include indigenous nomenclature. So if you can all welcome Brenda to the stage.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. My name is Brenda Kyle. I am a certified naturalist and interpretive guide. As a naturalist, my role is to understand how everything works together and relay that information to people in an easy, approachable manner. As an interpretive guide, my role is to provoke thought or to provoke action. And I hope that today's presentation provokes you in some way. It came about at the Interpretive Conference back in December in Palm Springs. I forget what the presenter was talking about, but I remember just being really frustrated and saying, we're all addicted to the way things are. We need a 12-step program to come off of this colonization problem. And Parker, Charnel Bushman, I don't know if you follow her, at Queenwork, said, that's a really good program. You should do that. I'm like, all right, I will. So here I am, almost a year later, and this is how to decolonize in 12 not-so-easy steps, and it's based on the Alcoholics Anonymous 12-step program. So here are the original 12 steps. They are religious in nature. My presentation isn't going to have a lot of pictures. So if you are a visual learner, it's word heavy because I really want you to focus on the words and what those words mean to you. It's very difficult to show pictures of the effect colonization has had without being graphic. I will say that I do presentations in English and Spanish. I'm fluent in both languages, and I will point out that neither one is my native tongue. My native language was taken by force or fear, the legal definition of robbery from my grandmother. So colonization, this is the Wikipedia meaning. I just see words that pop out. Displacement, assimilation, settler colonialism, it's murder, it's genocide of language, people, ideas, culture, all of those things that brought us to where we are today. And thank you for being here to maybe take a step in that decolonization process. Colonization is a noun. It's not. Colonization is a verb. Colonization is active. Colonization is violent. It is the control over the indigenous people, and which includes indigenous plants and the relationships that plant and people have. So, first step, admit there is a problem. If you're not ready to admit there is a problem, just wait, because that is the first step. Land acknowledgements are a way to admit, to acknowledge that the people that are there are no longer there, and it is a step in the decolonization process. If you can't see the effects of colonialism, you're not ready to decolonize. To really see the effects of colonialism, look around the room. How many Native people are here that are related to California native plants? It's a big piece that's missing. Look outside the room. Look outdoors. All the plants that are here that are European, that are from other parts of the world. Look within yourself to see how colonialism has affected you personally. Number 2, believe that together we have the power to transform not only ourselves, but the institutions that perpetuate colonialism. We all work for different nonprofits, businesses, et cetera. We're part of bigger communities. And change does start with just one person. We get a lot of questions about how to diversify your workplace. You know how to diversify your workplace? Diversify your workplace. That's it. Because under colonialism, only a few people benefit. I've benefited under colonialism at someone else's expense, and that's not okay with me. What do you or your org have to lose by trying to decolonize? What will you gain? What will you gain by decolonization? As you go through, and the institutions that perpetuate colonialism also perpetuate classism, colorism, all the isms are under that umbrella. And one of the biggest isms is wokeism. Will you be seen as being woke? And if you will, is that a bad thing? Is it? I don't know. These are questions that you have to answer within yourself. Like I said, you want to see the effects of colonialism, look around the room, look outside, look within yourself. 3, we make a decision. We make decisions every day, but for this program to work, you have to make decisions with intent. You have to change colonialism as you understand it. This is your program. Every addict I've ever met is working their 12 steps, but they're working their 12 steps in their own personal way. What does addiction mean to you? What is your addiction to the status quo? What is your addiction to colonialism? What do you have to lose? How hard is it going to be not to wake up in the morning and slam and say, damn, I am a white cis man, I have all the power. I don't know what that feeling feels like. Some of you do, some of you don't even know that you do, and that's the addiction hiding itself. So with your orgs, what are your hiring practices? Is the cultural bias blatant? Is it a little bit more hidden? What are your own biases? If you think that you do not have a bias, you have to go back to step 1. We really do. I know my biases, and I fight them every single day. And I try not to let those biases affect my decision making. But they do. And I'm human. We're all human. And this is why there's a 12-step program. It's you start and you work the 12 steps every single time. You can't skip around. You work them in order, because when you're working on step 6, you're working on steps 1 through 5 as well. Okay, I'm sure you all read that. Take a moral inventory of yourself, your org, your workplace. Do these values align with you, who you are, who you want to be? All of it, past, present, and future. 50 years from now, when your name is associated with whatever research project you're doing, will you be proud? Why? Who did you get there? Who did you acknowledge? That tech is really important. I did this in another presentation. What is the oral tradition if it isn't lecture? What is acknowledging our ancestors if it's not citing our sources? What is living in place in community with plants if it is not actual field work? Do you acknowledge that? As academics, do you acknowledge that in your work? If you don't, go back to step one. You can clap, it's cool, that's good stuff. That is fantastic stuff. And this is the most important thing. What does your budget look like? This is a quote from Jose Gonzalez. Your budget is a moral document. It shows people where your values are. And if you are not investing in your workforce development, then go back to step one. What measurable actions can be taken? And again, these are personal values. And if you think that you cannot decolonize your org in your workplace, think again. We have the power to do it, but we have to start within ourselves. Admit to ourselves and to others the exact nature of how colonialism has affected us. Some of us have come out winners, some of us not so much. Oppression is real. How have you benefited? How will you use your privilege to help others? I work for the Theodore Payne Foundation. He was an Englishman that came over at the turn of, back in the 1800s. And he was here in the 1900s advocating for California native plants. He used his privilege to advocate for the preservation of California native plants. So that's a good thing. He used his privilege. So how will you use your privilege? Are you a BIPOC person? Are you white passing? How will you use that privilege? Have you suffered? Yeah. If so, how? And are you willing to share your story so that 7 generations from now, our children don't have to? We are ready to make a change. We are ready to take personal steps in order to transform not just ourselves, but the orgs we work for. And are you ready? And let me tell you something, passion is not enough. Passion is nothing. Passion is a fleeting moment. You need commitment. Are you committed? Are you going to be devoted? If you're not, go back 2 steps. You work the steps in order for a reason. Approach ongoing development with humility. Be humble. We're not all superstars, and that's okay. Humble means being realistic. Humble means accepting help. Humble means willing to give help to others, assistance to facilitate, etc. And accept that mistakes will be made. We're human. And that's why, you're here at this one, go back a couple of steps and start all over. It's okay. This is one of the only pictures in the presentation. Make a list of all persons we have harmed and be willing to make amends. And if you've never had to give an apology before, this is a framework on how to give an apology. A good apology has 3 parts. Number 1, you accept blame for your actions. You take responsibility for what you did. Number 2, you acknowledge the pain that it caused somebody else. And number 3, you find a solution. A good apology sounds like, Michael, I'm really sorry. I texted you really angry things at 1 o'clock in the morning. I see how that really would have disturbed your slumber so that you wouldn't be ready for today. In the future, I will only angry text you before 11. That is a good apology. If anybody has ever had a partner and that partner has said, "Oh, you're sorry? Sorry for what?" There's your outline. There it is. Number 9, make direct amends, land back to such people wherever possible, except when it would injure or hurt them. Because yes, sometimes acknowledging a wrong is more hurtful. So step number 8 is be willing to. Be willing. Acknowledge to yourself that you hurt somebody else. Number 9, do it unless it's going to hurt them more. Number 10, continue to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admit it. Decolonization is a process. Breaking an addiction is a process. It didn't take you 30 days to get hooked. It's not going to take you 30 days to get sober. It's an ongoing, lifelong commitment to change. Seek counseling. Do not confuse a counselor with a sponsor. A sponsor is a peer that's going through the same things that you are. A counselor is a paid professional. My favorite at Queenwork, she's the one that inspired this talk, Teresa Baker from the In Solidarity Project. You can reach her through her website. Those are 2 wonderful Black women that are in tune with anti-racism, anti-colonialism, and if you want another counselor, seek professional help. Really, news for you. Women of color are not here, and this is Rue Mapp's a quote from Outdoor Afro. Black women are not here to be your emotional mammies. I am not here to support you emotionally. If you want that, get a therapist. Okay, that's what they're there for. But definitely seek counseling in one way or another. And finally, the 12 steps. Now that you're more aware and educated, try to carry this message to other orgs, other people, and practice these principles in everything that we do. And what you're seeing now are the Hermes principles of organization. Number 1, you'll notice, be inclusive. Be inclusive. Let the people speak for themselves. Those are 2 of the most important things that you can do to fight colonialism. I think my time is almost up. Thank you so much. I see a lot of people taking pictures. Do not erase me. Cite me. My name is Brenda Kyle at Chaparral Chick. Thank you so much.
So I just wanted to bring up real quick that we're going to do a panel at the end, so you can ask questions of Brenda at the end. I'm going to introduce our next presenter. Julia Samaniego is going to speak. Julia Samaniego is from the San Fernando Valley and Fernandino Tataviam Band of Mission Indians and Chumash Village. Julia was also a first-year intern hired to help with fire resilience and restoration in the Santa Monica Mountains. All right. Ready, Julia?
Thank you, Michael. Haik u. Hello, my friends, and good morning. Hakupa. Thank you for your time and coming to see my presentation. My name is Julia Wildflower Samaniego. I am from the Fernandino Tataviam tribe, and as I am sharing my experience of reconnecting to my ancestors, some of the language will be in native tongue. As we all know, a lot of my language was lost due to the California tribal history. The name of my presentation is The Reconnection of Native Plants through Yaraokmok Native Ancestors. Yaraokmok is in Tongva tongue, and the meaning of it is memory. I was blessed with a great opportunity of becoming an intern for Community Nature Connection, and within the year, I was learned about fire resilience, invasive plants, propagation, and seed collecting through a horticulturist point of view. Little did I know I would be going on a journey of reconnecting to my ancestors through these native plants. I do want to make a point of letting you guys know as we go through the presentation, you will notice each slide is a different color. The reason I chose this is because every color is a representation of the fourth wheel, also known as the medicine wheel. And every color has a significant meaning to my tribe. As we continue this presentation, oh, sorry, I was just told you that. The first beautiful creation must be the oak tree, and in native tongue, it is siuka. It was very significant to California natives. It was our primary food source. Each siuka tree was used differently, but all acorns were used for the food. Next, we have the great black oak tree. It is mainly grown on the Gabrielino and Tongva land. The bark from this tree was said to be used as a dye. The pigments were used to color animal skins and make ceremonial face paint, as well as for tattooing. Then we have the coast live oak. It was said to be the mother of all oaks. There are stories stating natives would bury their deceased under these trees with the belief that their spirit would help carry our next generation. Tribal elders are still looking into this today. We also have the valley oak, Shakanga. This is from the Encino village. This village is from my bloodline. We mainly used the acorns as a food source and would turn them into wechi, also known as acorn mush. It was such a humbling feeling being able to nurture these small acorns from seedlings to a baby tree. I have to say, unfortunately, I did not present a picture of bent trees, but I did want to give you some tribal history that I found absolutely amazing in the midst of this. I found that bent trees were extremely fascinating, and what I would give to see one in person. These were said to be used as trade routes, and would help trades happen from the east to the west. We believe it may have been possibly used amongst the willows and due to the tree flexibility while it was growing. It occurred to me while I was caring for these plants, I was in fact reconnecting with my ancestors, because these are the very same beings that they used for critical survival, that they used for the coloring of our hides, that they used for elaborate decorative tattoos, that they used for the symbolic war paint, that they used for maintaining a strong and stable network of trade. Moving on to slide 2, I chose to focus on medicinal and the purification plants. Whether you're Native or not, everyone automatically connects white sage to Native Americans, and most are aware of its uses within the culture as well, such as it being used in ceremony, like a powwow, or it being used medicinally, helping the body to relieve pain of inflammation. But I want to focus on some other plants lesser known. Even though I had many experience at various events of planting with mugwort, which ended up being one of my favorite plants, absolutely love the smell of it. My reconnection to this wonderful being was once I was able to introduce it into my own garden at home. It gives me such a sense of safety and peace. So I must say it was such an amazing feeling once I had a conversation with one of my elders, Ellen Salazar, to find out the historic usage of this plant. Mugwort was believed to keep ghosts away, and if you rub the leaves along your body. A necklace worn with this plant attached to it would keep you from dreaming of the dead. Particularly the Chumash and the Paiute in California tribes would burn and inhale the smoke, which would promote healthy dreams. It was also used through the smoke to treat the flu, colds, and fevers. And last, it was used to help cure rashes. Another cousin of purification is cedar. It's usually used as one of the smells at a powwow. It helps with the cleansing and the purification, so it is used sometimes at a land ceremony or to cleanse your house or even yourself. We use it after ceremony with our prayers. Slide 3 is about diversity, which is why I had to talk about native milkweed, due to how it was used in multiple different ways. First, we have woolly pod milkweed, which was turned into a chewing gum and cordage to use in building our houses. Then I also have a picture of narrow leaf milkweed, which was used once dormant to strip and use it to make our regalia for our ceremonies. And last, but definitely not least, I have a picture of California milkweed, which was also used in a sense of chewing gum and also cordage to make our weapons as well as our regalia. Now I must bring up dogbane, which is also known as red milkweed. I did not present a picture of this, but it is, I have dogbane on there, but I made the mistake. Dogbane is also not known as woolly pod, so I do want to let you guys know that. Dogbane was once cooked with leaves, and it was said to be turned into a milky sap, which was very flavorful and kind of chewy. Us natives identify and knew how to use every part of our gifts. Dogbane was said to be some of the strongest cordage, strong enough to make the canoes for the Chumash, as well as the fish nets. I truly felt my reconnection amongst these milkweeds as I was teaching my children about it, as I hear my ancestors whisper, I must have patience while I'm teaching the next generation. I was once told by a teacher, you're unable to grow until you're willing to be uncomfortable. And unlike all these relatives, let me go to my next slide. I was once told by a teacher, you're unwilling to grow until you're willing to be uncomfortable. And like all these relatives, they once were uncomfortable to the state to then break through their seed and grow. So I challenge you, my friends, to be willing to be uncomfortable. Be uncomfortable in your conversations. Be uncomfortable in your setting. Be uncomfortable driving. Be uncomfortable in your skin. Be uncomfortable being uncomfortable, so we can all grow to better our next generation. Aho.
So again, we're going to have a panel at the end, so we're running a little ahead of schedule, but that's all right, because we'll have more time for that panel at the end. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce our next speaker, Xochitl Flores. Xochitl Flores grew up on the Yakama Reservation in Toppenish, Washington, and traces their ancestry to the Mixteca region of Puebla, Mexico. They currently work on cross-pollinating traditional ecological knowledge, queer politics, and indigenous philosophies to connect the dots between colonial botany and queer liberation. Xochitl received their BS in forestry from the University of Washington with a focus on restoration and ecology, and has credentials from the UC Santa Cruz Center of Agroecology and Sustainable Food Systems. They've been organizing in ecological spaces for over a decade to raise awareness on the importance of flowers and their seeds as resiliency tools in the climate crisis, as well as undoing heteronormative understanding of nature. As the Hummingbird Farm manager, Xochitl continues to intercrop the decolonization of flower and queer ecology into the discussion of sustainable ag, environmental justice, and a just transition as we reconnect to the ancestral plant medicine on occupied lands. So please welcome Xochitl.
Good morning, everyone. So again, my name is Xochitl, and I'm going to be talking to you all on the Hummingbird Farm, which is a 6-acre farm I manage in San Francisco, Occupied Ohlone territory. And yeah, it's an organizing project created by Poder, which stands for People Organizing and Demanding Environmental and Economic Rights, and Environmental Justice Oregon, San Francisco. And yeah, this project was created out of a public campaign with Poder called Pueblote, which stands for big lot or people lot. And the idea is putting public lands in people's hands. And we're going to be talking about this project. So I don't know why that was like. Anyways, so a little bit about where the farm is. Again, it's in Occupied Ramatush Ohlone territory in the Excelsior specifically. And so for the folks who are not very familiar with San Francisco, you can see this little green dot at the very bottom of the map. That is where the Excelsior is. It's in southeast San Francisco. And it's got the highest concentration of children in the city. It also 71% of those children qualify for federally funded lunch programs. There's no current farmers market in the Excelsior, and it's got the lowest concentration of public garden spaces in the city. And it's in between the two freeways that are located in San Francisco, and there's pretty heavy active roadways where there's a lot of just trucks and whatnot, specifically Geneva Avenue, which borders our farm. So there's a lot of asthma in our neighborhood as well. So those are some of the Excelsior neighborhood background. And then so some of the problems just in general in San Francisco is that there's a disconnection between community members and their land, workers and their labor, communities and their indigenous practices and ancestral wisdom. There's just the ongoing exploitation and oppression of communities of color, gentrification in the neighborhood. There's a lot of pro-development interests that are slowly pushing people out that can no longer live there. Generations who've lived in the Excelsior, the Mission, in San Francisco in general, who are being priced out of their homes. Historical legacy of gatekeeping of ecological spaces. So that includes this idea of looking at restoration as only native plants and not native people as well, and the bridge of connecting that restoration, ecological restoration is also cultural restoration. So it's really in putting that in our focus. And then something that's happening everywhere is this climate chaos, right? The world is on a chaotic track. So how do we organize in this age of climate chaos? So the solution, I'm going to talk a little bit about these pictures too. This is, the top one is some of our members organizing for affordable housing in San Francisco. And then the bottom is just a collective effort of people from the neighborhood coming together and giving their opinions and voices of how we should organize in programs on the farm, and then just climate chaos, fire, smoke. So the solution is putting public lands in people's hands, right? Using underused public lands and allowing people to have access to them. And so one of the things that separates us from a lot of other gardening, farming spaces is that we deliberately did not put any borders in for people to come in or out, which both helps us and allows more people to visit the space. And also some people sometimes take the food, right? But if they're taking the food, they're probably taking it because they need it, right? And so we still record the data, so we're still producing the food for the neighborhood. But sometimes, it hurts a little bit when you're growing all season and then your crop is gone. But again, we're putting those public lands in people's hands, and that is part. We didn't want to create any borders to the space to begin with, and then this project was spearheaded by youth, and then I'll talk a little bit more about that collective next. But they created this to restore the ecological, social, and cultural restoration of their home. So these are San Francisco youth, Excelsior youth, and they're creating access to these plant sisters. Just being able to enter the space and see the plants those are cultural, spiritual nutrients that we don't always talk about. It's not just the consuming of the vegetables, but it's also the interaction and sharing space with those plants. Connecting to our native foodways, other plant medicines, and then just a green space in general. And then organizing together is a way to push back against the pressures of food insecurity, gentrification, and climate chaos. And as we go through this, one of the things about our project is that we understand that it's an urban farm, and although we are trying to feed as many people as we can, realistically, we know we're not going to feed everyone. And so we're really addressing the farm as an organizing space, a way to address climate chaos, a way to interact with each other, a way to create those social bonds, that social fabric that allows us to navigate the climate crisis, when those events happen. We're currently... I'll talk a little bit more about this as we go forward. But yeah, so we're here to organize. We are trying to feed people, but we're also realistic of our capacities. So this is the actual space. It's a little over 6 acres of space in San Francisco, and land is this huge commodity in San Francisco. So being able to organize to obtain this to begin with, it was super difficult. A lot of this is what the youth organized. They met with the neighborhood, they did door knocking, they would talk to politicians, they talked with city agencies, they took surveys. They did 5 years of work just to get the physical farm. And we're about to celebrate our 5th year in December. So, woo, happy birthday. But yeah, so it took 5 years of organizing before we even had a physical space to work with. It's about 3 acres of grassland. So as you can see in this image, the center part is our gathering space, and I'll have close-up pictures of that. But everything above that is grassland, and pretty much along that first pathway is what is in our lease. So we are working on restoring parts of that grassland as part of our management plan, but everything below that centerpiece is going to be our ag land. So, and then I'll have a future map or image of what we're trying to create later on. I already talked about the no borders, and then since we've been involved in the space, we've picked up a lot of the trash. There was a homeless encampment for a while in that space. There's just a lot of loitering, excessive drinking, trash, just a lot of trash, and we would find dead animals there too, just thrown around. So we've improved the space just by being there and bringing the community in. And so the youth that created this, that spearheaded this, they called themselves Urban Campesinex, and this is still the youth group that we manage, or that helps run the farm. And they had 5 organizing pillars. They wanted the farm to be intergenerational, intercultural, educational, restorative, and community governance. And as they were coming up with all of these pillars for their point, they were really also being inclusive of the language. Like we heard earlier, English and Spanish are both colonial languages. And so as we move forward, youth are using language to move forward and taking part of that historical legacy of the language we're left with, but how do we create it and to be more inclusive of what we want. And so they used Campesinex instead of Campesino. So again, putting the X to remove the gender approach to being a farm worker, but also just really acknowledging that everybody can be a land steward. It doesn't matter where you fall in the spectrum of sexuality or gender. We still all need a connection to the earth, and that is part of what the organizing principles were with these youth, is how do we make this inclusive for everyone to have access, to feel included, because when we address issues of climate chaos, we need to be our full selves in the space. We can't be, it doesn't help us to be holding back on our sexuality or integration or identity. We need to integrate that into the solutions that we're trying to create. So here in the top picture, we have some of our interns creating an altar. We have an ongoing living altar that rotates with the seasons. So they're touching it up right there. We have some folks planting some vegetables in the first picture. That is our current group. We just harvested some amaranth this last Sunday, so that was us before we took it down. And then here we had a queer event on decolonizing the empire and restoring to the land. So here we are adding some plants that were more queer focused, and specifically these are liatris, or they're also commonly known as gay feathers. So really using the tools as organizing materials and educational tools as we plant, and allowing these folks to interact with the space and have a connection to plants on the farm. So here's just examples of our 5 of our principal organizing pillars. The first one is intergenerational, like I mentioned, and here we have the 2-spare drum playing at the farm, and we have here we have one of our youngest land stewards, Tonito. You can see them at the drum, just getting their first exposure to the drum and just being in the space with elders. Intercultural, we had a Filipinx, we have had a few Filipinx community events on the farm, and then this was during peak COVID, so we were trying to create space for other communities to use the farm and to be able to hold cultural events that are safe, especially during the pandemic. We were limiting outdoor space, or it limited access to outdoor spaces to hold these large events. Educational, here we were doing soil testing, so we had folks from San Mateo Resource come help us and lead a soil testing class. And then restorative, we've been able to bring monarchs back onto the farm, and so through some of our restoration process. And then community governance is, again, here's an event of just community coming together and talking about issues in the neighborhood, issues they want to address on the farm, et cetera. And so we are growing food, flowers, and herb production. Here's just an example of some of the stuff we grow. And again, you can see that there's no fences or anything, and it's just attached to the grassland. So this was the only harvest we've had of corn as a group. The last couple years, people have just taken it beforehand. But we do get stuff. We still get some stuff. But and actually, we get a lot of people taking the leaves of the corn. And that's, again, those are just those, you can buy corn at the store, but you don't have access to the leaves, right? And those are the kind of the cultural nutrients and the cultural relationship with plant testers that you can't really just find at a store. So although we are able to provide some produce, we're also providing those other niches of these plants and these relationships that people have had with these plants. And so that's that. Some more flowers and some of our winter production, some kales, some brassicas in there. And then we also made lavender oil this year. We decided to do an all-in there's an organization called All In San Francisco, and they raise school supplies, backpacks, books, crayons, all the school supplies you need. And they do a large backpack giveaway in August. And so this last year, we decided to create plant medicine to include in those kits. So we did 1,000. Thank you. Thank you. And so this is part of the organizing of the youth, who was like, how do we use the resources on the land to return and give back to youth, smaller youth in San Francisco? And so we created 1,000 servings of lavender roll-on oils from Lavender on the Farm and Segurite Land Trust. We created rosemary hydrosols to help the students study, and then 1,000 batches of chamomile tea to help students relax and study and all that. This is a connection to our plant testers, like I mentioned, those relationships with plants. Here we have, in the corner, we have the San Francisco Native Cultural Center, and they have been hosting workshops on the farm. Here they're making, looks like they're making a tincture. We made a couple tinctures of with California poppies, and so we took the medicine, we processed it together, and then we made tinctures together. And then we also made a salve out of willow. And so this is, again, having the Native American Cultural Center use our space so they can provide programming and a connection to their constituents. And then just an example And then here in the corner, we had a community member pass away, and so their family and then just the greater community wanted to plant a tree in their honor. And so we have 3 trees now that have been planted in memory of folks. And again, we're allowing people access to plant a tree and more in their family members, but also help do it in a way that contributes to the larger ecological space, not just the humans, but the birds, the insects. They all benefit a little bit from this collective effort. And then here this was last Sunday with the amaranth. We dyed fabrics for our Dia de los Muertos altares. We dyed all the fabrics that we're gonna use this year with some of the amaranth from our crops. As I mentioned at the very beginning and showed the map of the larger space, we have about a little over 3 acres of grassland. And so what we're trying to do simultaneously as expand our agricultural space is restore some of this grassland. San Francisco was historically grasses, so it was grass and swamps. And so with the urban sprawl and colonialism and all that, we've had a lot more buildings, but we've also had a bigger increase in trees. And so that balance of we need more trees to mitigate the climate crisis, but in the process, we also take a valuable habitat space for historically what was in San Francisco, which was grasses. And so here we have us doing there was a fire from the fireworks this 4th of July and caught about an acre of the grassland on fire. And so we came back after the fire and helped us disperse some native seeds. And we're doing some just grassland education. And in this, we've had some started for us this past year. So this upcoming winter, we will be doing a massive plant out of native plugs, native grasses, native flowers, and everything along this fire scar. We also have a riparian zone that we're slowly trying to restore. Some of our goals in the space is to create a seasonal pond at the very bottom of the space. And this is what it currently looks like. We've been able to do some effort into clearing out the space, but we still got more to go. And here's, this is not what the farm looks like. This is our future goals. But I put this up here because I really wanted to emphasize, you see the little water bottom at the bottom, this water patch. That's essentially what we want to do here, is clear that out, even it out. And when it does rain, we do get water that pools. So our goal is to create habitat enough for frogs and other amphibians to come back to the farm. They exist in McLaren Park. They just don't exist where we are at now. So we just know if we build the habitat, they will come. We outgrew our center gathering space, which is that original spiral. And so we're looking to expand and create another gathering space with incorporating California native a roundhouse. And so that is part of our goals, and we're working with the Association of Ramatush Ohlone to create that. And then we do want to create a little hoop house system of production, and we might close that off so we can actually start getting to a point where we can start either selling our produce to create some revenue, or at least providing to a food bank. Currently, our food, anything that we grow, predominantly goes to volunteers, and then the community forages, the other part that we don't get to harvest ourselves. And so, but we do want to create a greenhouse. Right now we're working with June Jordan High School, which is a high school maybe half a mile away, and we use their greenhouses to start our some of our starts. And we also work with a women's farming collective in the North Bay who we're creating. They have large greenhouse systems, so we go and pick up starts from them. But we're also creating a resiliency network with them. So in case some natural disaster, which is probably will be the big earthquake, we have access to a food source already, so we can bring that food, bring it to the farm, and then redistribute it to families in San Francisco. Because again, the point is not necessarily to feed San Francisco with the food we're growing, but how do we organize food sources and food security so it comes through the farm and then we can redistribute it? Because we don't have enough space or funds to grow all the food for the city ourselves. But we can organize ourselves now to have those connections ready, because we work with a lot of, Poder works with a lot of environmental orgs around the nation, and something we keep hearing over and over after natural disaster is that the wealthier communities, the white communities, get the resources first. And so the communities of color, the poorer communities, the disenfranchised communities have to wait their turn, and so we're trying to be preemptive and have those networks ready now. And so, thank you. And then creating a restroom and a more of a ADA accessible, and you can enter from the main entrance, but just another one from the bottom in case people want to still access the, again, we're trying to be inclusive of everybody. Everybody can help out in the farm in one way or another. So how do we create that now? And that's our contact info. Those are general work days. If you're ever in San Francisco and you want to come visit us, Wednesdays from 3 to 6, Thursdays 9 to 12. And those are our restoration focus days on the Thursdays. And then Sundays are our biggest work days, 11 to 2. And then I want to invite you all Saturday, December 3rd. We are doing our plugs restoration plant out. So we're just doing a general call out and again, trying to incorporate the community to take an active role in restoring these grasslands and not just walking by them, and really understanding that that is what historical San Francisco looked like. And we're working with the current Native communities there and integrating their knowledge, their perspectives, their blessings to integrate that, so that when we're looking at restoration projects, again, we're not just looking at Native plants and animals, we're addressing it from Native people and their relationship with these Native plants and Native animals. And so if you want to follow us on Instagram, Urban Campesinex, that's the farm Instagram. So that's it for now. Thank you. All right. And there's my contact info if you want to get a hold of me. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Alejandra Soto, and I am co-chairing this session with Michael, who is our next speaker. Michael found his love of native plant restoration during his time at San Jose State while working to get his BS in environmental studies. After working for 6 years in nonprofit conservation and environmental education in both the Bay Area and Southern California, Michael is now the steward manager at Rivers and Lands Conservancy in Riverside, California. Michael spends most of his time protecting and restoring habitat for an endangered sandfly. In his free time, he helps organize the CNPS BIPOC Group, which he will be talking about next.
All right, hello. Get this here. All right, so yeah, my name is Michael. I'm usually talking about like land stewardship and restoration stuff. I think that's probably easier to talk about. But today we're going to talk about the CNPS BIPOC Group. And so, by the way, BIPOC is Black, Indigenous, People of Color. It's an acronym to kind of all in case people of color. It was just an image of one of our Zoom calls I wanted to put on there. That was really cool. We're just laughing, having a good time. And I wanted to do a disclaimer real quick. I'm not a DEIJ expert. You know, I joined the group because I wanted to learn more about this stuff. I might be the opposite. I'm still, learning every day. I also, joined. I wanted to meet other BIPOC people in this field. Sometimes it feels like it's few and far between. So I'm glad that I've made, quite a bit of friends since we've joined this group, and I got to meet a lot during this conference. So it's been really great meeting everyone, and I see you all out there. So Yeah. Oh, and I know Brenda had mentioned earlier this white passing, to check your privilege there. I kind of feel that sometimes because I'm not super close with my cultural heritage. I don't speak Spanish. My parents don't speak Spanish, and there's reasons for that. There's reasons why their parents didn't teach them Spanish, and mine weren't able to teach me Spanish because of assimilation, things like that. But I feel that weight, and it's another reason why I want to join this group and do whatever I can and to try to help other people that don't have that white passingness, or I don't know how else to explain it, but yeah. So that's my disclaimers. But so how it started. I think it was February 2021 was the first meeting that I believe Chris Sarabia and Decolonize, see you there. I don't know if Chris is here, but they coordinated or started the first BIPOC group session or meeting, and so they had put a flyer out. And I don't know if Elizabeth Cube is here with CNPS, but Elizabeth actually sent me the flyer because I didn't see it. I missed it. I just, there's so many CNPS flyers that go around Instagram. And so I just missed it. So I just want to thank Elizabeth for sending me that because, she knew that I would be interested, I guess. And I was. So I was at that first meeting, and I've been at most of the meetings since then. And yeah, so I just wanted to, without talking about anyone's experience, in general or anything, but I just wanted to share some of the takeaways from the meetings that we've had, and basically a lot of people kind of echoed that it's been a much needed space. There's people shared, feelings about how it feels to be, BIPOC in this field or in the hobby of native plants or anything like that. And so there's always, sometimes it feels like there's some tokenization or people have experienced racism or prejudice. And it's been just great to hear everyone's stories because a lot of times it can feel like we're alone with those stories, and then just talking to each other about it, it's almost like therapy. We're in this group for our meetings are sometimes an hour, sometimes a little longer, sometimes they drag on. It's all right, I gotta go get dinner. But yeah, it's just oftentimes it just ends up feeling like therapy, and yeah, it's great. Cool. So I just want to talk about what we do in the group, and so these are just some images we pulled off our Instagram account. Just want to show we organize our meetings. We share, a lot of us work at different nonprofits, or we're just part of, groups or volunteer groups, and so we share our events with each other. We hope to see each other at our events. We, as a group, we're all throughout California. So we can't always participate at everyone's events, but we try the best we can. And so yeah, we share jobs with each other. We try to share skills. So I've done a presentation before. I've practiced it before. I had to do it in person. I wish I got to do this one, practice it a little more, but I think this week would have been the week we had to meet, and so it was just busy, chaos with the convention. And yeah, we talk about DEIJ stuff, that's diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice stuff with each other, and figure out how we can implement these things at our organizations, or just teach each other, because like I said, I'm still learning these things too. And yeah, we promote each other, which you'll see in a couple slides. I'm going to be promoting some of our members. And all in all, we're providing a safe space for BIPOC people to meet and to, do all these things here. So I just want to show you a couple of things we've done together so far in our, a little over a year, actually almost 2 years of meeting monthly and, meeting on weekends sometimes. So we had a camp out, so that was really cool. I helped coordinate with some other people a camp out in Atascadero, California. It was kind of by Morro Bay. It's really cool. Got to go hiking together. We went on a search for a calicortus. I can't remember which Mariposa lily it was. I think it was like the San Luis Obispoensis. We didn't find it, but it's all right. It was still fun. And then, yeah, we went to the beach at Montaña de Oro State Park, and we went to the Elfin Forest down in Los Ojos. I don't know if you've ever been there, but it's really cool. A bunch of stunted coast live oak trees. They're really cool looking, and they look really gnarly. But yeah, so that's us there. And then I want to show this picture that Milo drew during our camping trip. That's Dino's son, Milo. That's me in the top right corner, if you couldn't tell. I'm wearing my, I'm wearing my Columbia jacket, and then he wrote Columbia. And then, yeah, I think that's Dino on the bottom left. And then we went to the Theodore Payne Foundation 2022 Native Plant Garden Tour. So Brenda, Kyle, who you just heard present at the beginning, helped us out, got a group together. We all went to the tour. We first, well, actually, it's not in order here, but we went to the Curovagna Sacred Springs, which is a really cool site. If you live in the LA area, you should definitely check it out. You see the sacred springs there. I'm not gonna lie, I forgot what the big tree was, but yeah, there's like a lot of information there, and there's like a little like visitor center there to read more information about the site. And then we also went to the Gottlieb Native Garden. That's my wife there. It's like this like really crazy native plant garden place in Beverly Hills. It's like super nice. It was like really weird just like parking in Beverly Hills and walking into some like fancy home. It was really cool. And then this one here, so we went to LAX sand dunes. This was really cool to me because like I said, I work in restoration, and Alejandra had mentioned I mostly spend my time working on restoration for Habitat for Endangered Sandfly. And like this area is like where the closest living relative of that fly lives. So I was like super excited to go there. And I know Alejandra was super excited to go there because her work like helps grow the plants for this restoration site. And I know she's been there before. So she got to see them all grown up, which was cool. And it's like right next to LAX, and you usually can't enter that area, obviously, because it's like next to an airport. It's like high security stuff. And yeah, so it was really cool to get to see that location, and I'm glad I got to see it with all my friends. We also do presentations, so there's me again talking about these sand dunes, which I hope to talk about at the next CNPS conference. I think that'd be really cool. And then Barbara actually did a presentation. She can't be here today because it's her birthday, so she's celebrating. She was here the last 2 days. But she did a presentation about her container garden, which was really cool. I know a lot of people want to learn how to grow natives in container gardens because a lot of us can't afford to live in places that have actual land. So sometimes it's, in our patios or our windows or whatever. So that was a really awesome presentation, and I hope that she can do that presentation here next year or next conference maybe. All right. Oh yeah. So recently, I don't know if everyone follows Esme on Instagram, but it's Mommy Gami. I think I got her in the next slide or so. You'll see her tag up there. But she makes native plant origami, and she recently did a workshop at Theodore Payne Foundation, and then also through our group, we had this connection with Pitzer College. She's trying to work with us to do a little short film thing, and they asked her and Jade, another one of our group members, to come teach the origami folding at their school, at their class. So, and I believe it was paid, so that's really cool. So they got a paid gig doing teaching origami to students at this at Pitzer College in Claremont. And yeah, so here's some images here. So that's another thing that kind of came out of a group that I feel proud that we were able to kind of put together. And so here's some of the origami that I was talking about that Esme puts together. So they got the Clarkia, it's Lepicinia, and various Calicortis. But yeah, so again, another thing I was talking about earlier is promotion of each other. So I really like to share Esme's work, like to share it on Instagram, tell people about it, tell you all about it here. So promote BIPOC art. So I know these might look familiar to you. There's some out there. The one in the middle, I believe, already sold, maybe, I don't know. but yeah, that's Lola Camacho's work. I put all of their handles up there so you can follow them on Instagram if you want to. There's also Adriana Barrera, her art's out there as well. Dalia Gonzalez, and then Esme's origami datura flowers are right there in the corner. And then, connecting BIPOC people. So these are all people that we saw on computer screens before we met in real life. When I came to the conference, I was meeting some of these people. I was just walking up like, oh, hey, what's up? And then they're like, oh, we've never met before. I'm like, oh, I forgot. I've never even seen you actually face to face. But I was just like, hey, let's go. What's up? So there's some pictures from different things we've done, and some pictures of people connecting outside of even the group, the stuff we're promoting. They're just people are friends now. So it's really cool, that this space has, provided this way for people to connect. So if you're a BIPOC person, you want to join our group, we have an Instagram page. It's right there. It's BIPOCifornia with a period after BIPOC. It's a private group. So if you want to join, just send us a message. It's helpful that way. Just letting us know about yourself. Let us know if you identify as a BIPOC person. If you don't message us, we'll message you. Maybe today, maybe tomorrow. I don't know. It's going to be a busy day, I assume. And if you don't have Instagram and you want to join our group somehow, you can email me. My email's there. You can talk to me after our panel. I think that's everything. So, go. Thank you. So we want to do a panel situation. I don't know if you guys want to just stand up here. We can also move chairs. Also, can you bring me that reporter there? Stand up here. You guys can stand. I can go down there. You have a microphone. Dino. Good. You guys want to stand in order of the... All right. I think I'm going to go down here.
First hand out. Are you stretching?
All right, is this working? This working?
Okay.
All right, so this is our lovely panel of speakers. Can you go to the next slide? Sweet, perfect. So this is our panel of speakers here. The only one that you haven't seen yet is Dino. So I was going to ask Dino a question first just to get us started. And I just wanted to ask if Dino can talk about how he got into the native plant world. I've heard the story, but I love the story. So can you talk about that?
Sure. First of all, I'm really honored. It's been a real honor and pleasure just to be here. I can't believe I'm here at a plant conference. I'm not a horticulturalist or a plant person by trade. I work in technology. I'm a network engineer by trade, actually. I didn't know what a native plant was prior to quarantine. It was honestly 2020. So I'm originally from LA. Now I'm living in San Diego, raising my family there, and very fortunate to have a home there. And 2020 was really it was really wet, right? And a lot of things came up. And during that time, while we were quarantined, we went camping in the backyard, so we pitched a tent. I'm always the first person to wake up in the morning, and it was foggy, and I kind of walked out, and I noticed plants started popping up, and was did my first plant ID, found buckwheat, which is my I love buckwheat. If you hey. Yeah, and so, by a show of hands, really, can anybody tell me if they speak to their plants? If they speak to plants? Okay, so it's not weird, see? My people, right? Because, we were having conversations, and I was figuring out, it was, they were revealing to me who they were, why they were there. I didn't know what I was gonna do. So many people, when it comes to gardening, it's like, what can I plant here? Avocados and, persimmons, and like, let's extract, and et cetera, et cetera. So they presented a different narrative, and I was able to ID some Artemisia californica. I apologize, I'm not comfortable speaking Latin. So laurel sumac and toyon and stuff like that. So this was all stuff that just was coming from the land. So, and to tie it into the BIPOC group, as we know, we've seen all the pie charts throughout the weekend, the graphs, the disparity between the demographic of the state and the folks that we're considering as leadership in the space. And I think you can look around and know that things are changing, and it's very important for me to expose that to my children, to really normalize that. The camping trip, that was my son's artwork. Go ahead. Yeah. So, and it's it's really important for my children to be exposed to that in the capacity, not everyone that plays basketball is in the NBA, not everyone that wants to understand plants at a deeper level is going to feed their kids with this. But more folks in my space need to be aware of where to find their leadership, how we're going to work with the land with as much grace and expeditiousness as we can. I don't know if that's a word, but that's just where I'm at. The BIPOC group has been absolutely incredible. Like he said, it's not like therapy, it's therapy. It's free too. So,
Hey, we talked about that.
not free. You gotta pay the Brenda tax, but no, but really, it's been such a just incredible, someone coming from me where I'm absolutely completely oblivious to this world, and now I have leaders in this space offering guidance, offering direction that may not be obvious to, let's say just normal or conventional is the word, right? Conventional, just means, right? And so I'm really glad that when I discovered them is the same time I discovered this space, and I'm just really grateful. I'm really grateful to be here. Appreciate that. Yeah.
Does anyone else have any questions right now that I can bring the microphone down to? Look at this way. All right. I don't know. Do I just pass this over?
Hi, my question is for Xochitl. Did you have problems or issues with wildlife eating your crops?
Yes. Our main rival for vegetables is the gophers. Gophers are our number one problem and the actual growing space. And then I was a little heartbroken. We had this really massive sunflower, and we collected seeds this last Saturday when we took down the amaranth, and I forgot to take the bag out of the shed, and the mice got to all the seeds. So those are our two number rodent issues. As far as pest control, we kind of rely on both the coyotes and the owls that show up to do some of that work. We have had an increase in gopher snakes as well, but I don't think they're really taking the numbers we need. And then we don't always set up traps, but because our interns and the people who come acknowledge that there's the balance of trapping them and reducing their numbers, they just don't want to be an active part of killing them. So if I do get there early enough, I'll set traps, but as of now, it's just integrated pest management.
All right, I'm back here. Does anyone else have any questions I can? Okay, you're at the front.
So you told us that it took about 5 years before you could break ground on this project. Were there any major obstacles or struggles that took you, that contributed to that delay?
Yeah, we have a lease with the Public Utilities Commission, which is the largest landowner agency in the city. And so we were really looking for spaces throughout the Excelsior. We looked at some spaces with the Parks and Rec and then the PUC. And it was really trying, like, nobody wants to give up that much land. Even negotiating our renewal of our lease has been kind of interesting because it's hard to get land, right? And in this age of land back and working with public agencies, this is kind of the closest thing we've gotten so far, is we're approaching it in a co-management where we're kind of taking the lead, but we still kind of have to check in with these agencies so that they know what we're trying to do. But it's still, they're not giving the land back, but they're kind of in a way giving a little bit of control up for allowing us, because we're not part of the city, we're a nonprofit organization, Poder, so it's us leading the restoration effort and leading the management of these spaces, but we still have to negotiate those city politics of like, where do we get money? How do we, be good neighbors to our other park organizing events? Like, we're right next to some soccer fields too. So one of the things that we deal with pretty much every Sunday when there's soccer games going on is there's no parking for anyone on the farm. And the people coming to the games may not even live in the neighborhood or San Francisco. So, the local people are being displaced in their own parking spots. So there's all these negotiation that happens because we are a city organization, or not a city, we're working with the city organizations. But yeah, so that was it. We had to go through supervisor meetings, and it was just, I got more involved once the space was created. I wasn't there when the youth were organizing with the politicians themselves.
Real quick, I have a question for Brenda. Brenda, you did your 12 steps to decolonization. I know it's new. I don't think you've ever talked about it before. Do you plan or hope to consult with people to, implement this or teach this at, their orgs or anything like that?
I have customizable rates. No. So this is the debut. I thank you all for helping me out. Going through and creating, it does have the potential to grow. It has the potential to become a program. It has a lot of potential. That's why I asked if you do post to social media, etc. Please do not erase me. The concept obviously belongs to Alcoholics Anonymous, and I give full accolades to them. But we have to change it. We have to tweak it. We have to work our program. Will I do it for other orgs? I don't see why not. Yeah, but not for free.
We have.
Question in the back.
I have a question for Xochitl. In your restoration work, have you gotten any support from CNPS, either locally or statewide?
Not at a statewide level. We've had some rocky relationships with our local chapter of CNPS. We've had some really supportive people in there, and then we've had some people who have been hyper aggressive towards our interns and have made them feel uncomfortable. And a lot of that has to do with I mentioned this a little bit, the historical ecological gatekeeping of a lot of these organizations having quote unquote ownership of these grasslands. And now that they're not run through the city or the PUC, they're still coming in with this mentality of like, we've done this, we're in charge, we're entitled to this like hierarchy of power. So that has been part of some of our friction. But we have the work party we're doing on December 3rd is with the McLaren Park restoration efforts that happen in the park, and there's a lot of CNPS members that attend that. So we are trying to mend relationships of restoring ecological spaces, but also cultural restoration, because we're trying to incorporate the Ramatush Ohlone folks as we restore, and really just holding our ground, continuing our organizing, continuing what we're doing and what is working, and bringing those people back in, but not diverting our ways. Because it's taken us 5 years, and we are working on these grasslands, and I'm the only full-time person on the farm itself. I do have another person from Pueblote who does help out with the programming, because we have a lot of schools that show up. We have a lot of different community groups, aside from the a lot of different cultural groups around the city that use the space. So we do have a programming lead. I'm more the farming lead at the space, but we are trying to integrate more CNPS at a local level. We are trying, we're just working with having them come to us, because we're creating the space for all the community, and we want everyone to come in. So yeah.
Hey, thanks to all the speakers so far. I've really been enjoying this session. And this question is kind of meta maybe, but I'm curious about, for whoever wants to share, what your experience has been at this conference. Like, what's resonant, what's exciting, what's challenging. Whoever wants to share.
I'll share. So first getting here, it totally felt like a fish out of water. It didn't seem like everything was as organized as other conferences I've been to, but this is my first CNPS conference, so I guess that's normal for here. Yesterday, the BIPOC meeting, we had a secret meeting without you, with Indigenous and other BIPOC people. It was amazing. It was amazing. I had no idea that there were so many people that identified as Indigenous here, or as, BIPOC folk. And I think it was Kat that said, how can you invite people and not make them feel welcome, right? And it was really nice to have that reception, to meet each other, to hand out the business cards, to build that network, to build that support system that we need to continue working and doing the kind of work and reintroducing tech, claiming the language, claiming everything that is rightfully ours. And so that was, I feel you. And so that was really, really incredible, the reception.
I could agree with Brenda. I barely arrived yesterday, so I didn't get to come first day, unfortunately, but I jumped right into our secret meeting, and it was absolutely amazing. It was complete open arms from the elders and just everybody there, and being, I guess, very young amongst the elders, I felt very, very open arms. It was great to meet multiple other tribal members, to also hear from where everybody was from, and it just made me feel much more confident in my presentation today.
One thing that I've been to other restoration conferences and other ecological spaces, but I'm really impressed with the room right now. There's a lot of young faces, there's a lot of people of color, which is really inspiring to what we're, when we're thinking the future, this is what the future nurturing looks like. This is just hearing our conversations, having this integrate with the rest of the conference, but just seeing this room right now is really inspiring. It's just really well diverse, and it's pretty well populated, so I'm impressed with that.
I'll share again. I just wanted to kind of acknowledge that, like, you know, when you think of the word social media, right, it can have a stigma, it can be bad, a lot of advertising, stuff like that, you know how it works. But, you know, this testament, and I know Michael touched on it a little bit, like, you know, I was having the same experience walking around, and I know you by your avatar, and I've seen your pictures, and I've liked your pictures, and I think your stories are entertaining, but to put a face on that and to really cultivate those relationships and incubate that kind of like in the technology space. Again, I'm a network engineer, that's what I do. So it's really interesting because it's not all bad, it's not all like, you know, influencer BS and stuff like that. It doesn't have to be BS. It can really lead to important connections, and I think the conference, you know, as far as coming in as a fish out of water and just like leaving knowing that you belong here in a whatever capacity that is, and you know, continuing to cultivate that through the connections that we have using the technology that's here. It's really important, you know. So just wanted to share that.
Is this one working? Cool.
This question is for everyone, and actually it's a question that I asked myself as a part of the BIPOC group too. How can you personally and organizationally work or live or act? What can you do personally and organizationally to create more social progress and just progress all around with other BIPOC groups as well as other non-BIPOC allies going forward?
All right, so number one, follow the 12-step program. Number two, in the BIPOC meetings, since they're not like, you know, like actual support meetings, I think I can tell you that the subject of imposter syndrome comes up a lot. And I've never felt that because I'm real. I'm here. I belong here. And I'm here either to teach or to learn. Right? So everyone that has felt that, stop. Just stop. Accept yourself for who you are. Embrace yourself for who you are, and move on from there. Because change really does come from within. If you change yourself, you change your perspective. You have not always the power to change everyone, but you have the influence to change everyone.
Yeah, I forgot the question, Brenda, I'm sorry.
What's that?
Can you make personal?
That's right, I remember now, sorry. So I think it's, from my perspective, again, this is not my professional space, but to be like the normalization that it ought to be, right? Just to operate in that manner, unapologetically, matter-of-factly, let questions come to you, answer them with as much grace, but you really, scrutinize the leadership that you follow and the reasons why, and if it, you know, resonates something deeper than you. I mean, of course, we've seen the tracks here when it comes to like the plants, right? You can come here from a horticultural perspective, from a aesthetic perspective, or you could be here to heal the land, right? And it's like, yeah, there's a gray area all in between. So operating like, if that's what resonates for you, like just present it on your day-to-day, you know, when you meet your neighbors and stuff like that. This is what I'm doing. You can ask me about this plant that you think is a weed, and I'll tell you why it's not a weed. You know, educate, and you know, that's really all we can do is, you know, you can't be mad at ignorance, you can only educate, and if the education is not something that resonates with them, just keep planting, right?
Thank you for asking that question, because I ask myself that almost every night. For me, I am currently on like an extremely extreme healing journey, especially being a mother of 3. So it just means a lot to me every day to challenge myself to grow. And I guess to answer your question is to take my own advice. I constantly put myself in uncomfortable situations. This was my first time ever doing a conference. It was my first time ever being in front of CNPS. My internship, I was the only Native student. I constantly challenged my teachers. I constantly challenged my boss. I asked a lot of uncomfortable questions because I wanted the answer. And no one was going to advocate for me but me. I constantly tell my children that, speak up, because no one's going to speak for you. So I take my own advice. I put myself in uncomfortable situations all the time to challenge myself to grow.
One thing, as I was thinking of this question, is showing up. I think that whether we have imposter syndrome or we don't have the skills or whatnot, showing up to these events or to the work party or to the hike or whatnot, that is part of building those relationships with other people. You kind of peer learn and you get a little, everyone is both teacher and student. So I think that's super important to stand by the stuff you do know really well and share that. And then remember that, we, in this age of climate chaos, we can't replicate the past anymore. We need to create the future with the tools we have currently and the ancestral knowledge of the past. How do we integrate those two things together? So I definitely think that's pushing forward, and the people who want to be with you, the people who want to build a future with you will be there with you. But showing up and being, it's okay if you don't get along, show up, feel it out, no thank you, move on, right? But if you show up, great connection, this is how we're going to build the future, we're in sync like this, and that's organizing, that's building, that's showing up for the future.
So I don't need that. So I kind of been orient with Julia, but all of you, about what are we going to do about unifying all of us on this planet, all the creatures and all the people through plant medicines, through our animal connections. What are we going to do about taking us out of this uncomfortability and creating comfortability for all of us, including what are we going to do about our relationships to the plants and the medicines and the foods with the indigenous peoples on the planet, the First Nation peoples, and everyone else. And we're all fusing more and more together genetically, where we live, what we do with our lifestyles, how we relate to each other and the planet and what lives on it.
Yes, you want to
So are you?
Start with you and all of you if you have
Thank
any ideas about this and what are we going to do? How are we going to organize? How are we going to move forward with all of this?
So I think this was a great start. I think just the fact that the doors were open to Indigenous and Native speakers, and they gave us the opportunity to be on this stage and be able to share our knowledge as well as our experiences, our perspectives, that you guys all sat through it, that you were uncomfortable in a lot of the conversations, and I thank you for doing that. You guys just had a moment of feeling what we've been feeling for hundreds of years, unfortunately. But I thank you for being willing to challenge yourself to grow. And I think to answer your question is to continue to have these, continue to invite us, continue to have your doors open, continue to embrace our culture. It'd be great if we didn't have struggles with obtaining farmland. It would be great if we had more open park service, if we were able to plant our own food at community parks. I have countless numbers of ideas, but that's just some of them. So thank you for asking that.
That's a really loaded question. And what was the first part? How do we unify? Is that what you said?
How are we going to put all of this together?
So, Mike, I'm going to counter your question with another question. Why do we have to? Why do we have to? Why can't I just be me? Why can't I be a fire person and let her be a water person? We exist separately. We don't have to unify, we just have to respect. Yeah.
I think we have one more question. Okay.
Okay, I'm totally taking Julia's advice because I feel uncomfortable asking this, but I have a native plant nursery, and people ask me quite often, what makes a plant native? So having the opportunity to ask people who are actually native here how you answer that question, if you get that question, and how you answer it.
What was the exact question? I'm sorry.
What makes a plant native?
Okay. So from my understanding and what I was told from my elders is it was originally here. So it was originally here before the Spanish took over, before the Europeans came over, before Columbus found America. It was here.
So there are non-native plants.
Yes.
That have been incorporated medicinally.
Yes.
So they've been integrated.
Okay.
Into a relationship of ancestors.
Yes.
And so sort of like the attitude towards plants like that.
Okay, so from my understanding, and maybe Brenda and the other panelists can touch more on this, is there is a huge difference between native and indigenous. So meaning I'm native, my tribe is originally from the San Fernando Valley, and then anything south of the border is indigenous. So that would mean more like Brenda, as well as Xochitl, they are indigenous. So they have their native plants are different from my native plants, but they are all used in different ways. Medicinally, they're very big. We have a lot of common plants, such as sage would be like a huge one. They use sage, I use sage, but they use like nopalas. We don't use nopalas, but it is native to the indigenous. Did that help you? Okay.
So from working at a nursery, the official definition is any plant that was in California, because we're talking about California native plants. California floristic province stretches from Oregon a little bit into Nevada and down into Baja California Norte, because that is still California. That is a California native plant. Anything that was here before European contact. Indigenous, I am indigenous. I am native to the Americas, but I am not native to what is now known as the United States. First Nations is a word that's used for people from Canada. Aboriginal is someone that is from New Zealand, Australia, etc. And all those words are just autochthonous, autochtona. That's what it is. Something that was there and has always been. That's what it is. Fancy word, autochthonous.
One thing I'd like to add is that there are the indigenous plants who are belong to a certain region, and there's also native food ways and native plant ways, and that is really taking those cultural indigenous roots with plants that may have been brought in. So those plants we're bringing in to practice our native ways may not be indigenous to the lands we're on, but that's one of the things that we practice on the farm, is that we're reconnecting with plant ancestors on occupied lands, because we still need those relationships to those plants that reinforce our indigenous habits, or reinforce our indigenous spirituality, reinforce our indigenous ways, but those plants aren't from here. They're not indigenous to these areas. And so it's very important for us to acknowledge that. And also, colonialism did move plants, all over the world. And, so there was a massive land theft, or not, land theft, yes, but also plant theft, plant ID, plant relationships. And this goes to just the way botany as a science was structured, is through a colonial lens. But along the way, people also incorporated plants into their foodways that may not necessarily be indigenous foodways, but they are cultural foodways, cultural plantways now. And there's, two examples I can just off the top of my head is like onions, right? People associate like a salsa with onions, and onions are indigenous to the Americas, or cilantro, right? So those are kinds of examples of plants that have been incorporated into the diets and become cultural norms, but are not necessarily native or indigenous to our backgrounds.
Thank you.
Hey y'all, so I am a BIPOC CNPS participant, and I just want to say thank you to everybody here that is present and those that were unable to attend today due to so many reasons, right? Time, finances, the ability to leave our families and our homes and our lands. Also, we just want to share gratitude to them as well. So y'all ready to get uncomfortable for a second? So I just want to mention a few things. So I attended 3 years ago, the CNPS conference, right? And I just want to say that the difference of attendees and how diverse it is today in comparison to 3 years ago is incredibly overwhelming to me. It brings so much joy and excitement, and although there is still so much to do, y'all, I want us to all look around with respect and just really be mindful of like who's missing in this group, right? There are a lot of folks that are still not present today, and there are many communities that we are unfortunately not hearing from. And that is what we need to do, especially as BIPOC folks, right? I'm speaking directly to BIPOC folks right now, is that for y'all to go to your communities and to continue having these conversations, to continue sharing your love and appreciation for native plants and the indigenous people and the native people of that land is what's really going to create the tension and the rift that is necessary within these worlds that so many of us move through. Also, for folks that are interested in learning more about Native folks and indigenous ways, if you are not BIPOC, I want to encourage you, and those of us that are, right? It is so important before we come from a place of extraction of knowledge. I don't want to just ask the questions and pull the knowledge out of you and then regurgitate that and claim it as my own, right? What you want to do is you want to tap into your own story. You want to tap into your own existence and your own ancestral knowledge so that you can come to the table and also offer something, right? So white folks, where y'all from? Where are y'all from? What plants did your ancestors connect with? That is just as important as knowing all the Latin names and botanical names of the native plants that the land that you occupy. It is essential for us to know our stories before, again, we begin to try to extract and extract and extract. That is what decolonization is. We are no longer here, and we are no longer going to accept being extracted from. We are no longer going to accept to be in the backgrounds, to be silent, to be questioned. Listen, be patient, and just know that with the work it is that you do with your individual self first, then come to us, then ask us the questions. But you have to do the work, you have to be uncomfortable, you have to discover those parts of yourselves before trying to take it from someone else. So I just wanted to share again my gratitude and just say thank you to everybody. I invite y'all to join the CNPS BIPOC group, please. Again, it came from a place of just knowing that there's still a lot of voices missing in this group, right? And I don't attend as much as I should, but we all do it within our capacity. And as much as you can, just pop in and share your experience, share your story. It's going to continue to weave us closer together as a community so that we really can fuck shit up. So thank you.
Well, I wanted to thank everyone for being here at this panel. I want to thank all my panelists. Yeah, thank you. A round of applause for them. So thank you. Yeah, it's lunchtime. So I know Jade mentioned she wanted to take a picture with some of the group members. So
Take a picture by the.
if anyone wants to come up and take a picture with one of our group, yeah.
I
Final
just want to
thoughts.
say thank you guys so much for being uncomfortable. For all those that stood up right now and were uncomfortable, thank you.